Hello and welcome once again to Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina. Monday means I'm at my house and I'm filming for y'all some videos on helping you out with your knitting and crocheting. So we did a sock knit along in June, and of course I'm still working on some because I just have so many projects going at once. Here is my Mina's vanilla sock recipe with heritage prints with self-striping yarn. And I am finally at the bind off of the second one. We've done a video on how to start it, which also involves some magic loop. She has a good video on her heel. I thought I'd do a video on how to finish off, one option for finishing off an elastic sock cuff, which is Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bindoff. Now, this bind-off uses extra yarn overs, but it is stretchy just like a sewn bind-off without having to calculate how much yarn you might have to use. Sometimes Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind-Off, they recommend going down some needle sizes. I'm just going to go ahead and use the needles I already have on this, but I thought I would give you my best walkthrough. I've seen several different ways to do this online. I will show you my favorite, and you can take it from there. I will mention that I am not doing whiteboards for this one. As I get into our knit along videos, I tend to be doing a lot in one day, so there isn't always time to draw stuff out. If you would like a video that shows this with the drawings, let me know, and I will attempt to do that a different time. Let's get to it. So I've been knitting this on magic loop. So I'm going to I got my yarn off the back here so it's not wound around when I don't want it to be wound around. And here we go for starting Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind-Off. First thing, we're just going to knit the first stitch. We're not going to worry about what is going on with the first stitch. Now, before every other stitch that we knit, we're going to do a yarn over. It's either going to be a regular yarn over is to come to the front and go over. That's one that's used in knitting all the time. We're also going to be using a backwards yarn over, which is not coming to the front, just coming up over the top of your needle. Before a purl stitch, which is next. So this is another thing about Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind-Off is it's really good for ribbing because you do a different type of yarn over before every single one. So we're going to do a regular yarn over before a purl stitch. So I'm going to bring my yarn to the front and come over the top. But then I need to purl, so I need to bring my yarn back around. So I've pretty much wound my yarn all the way around my needle right there. I'm going to purl the next stitch. And then I'm going to take the yarn over, and in a regular bind off, I would be taking this first stitch and pulling it over the second. In Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy, I'm going to take both the yarn over and the first knit stitch. Sometimes you got to wiggle to get in there. I'm going to pull both of them over that purl stitch I just made and drop them off. Now, some instructions will say to pull one stitch and then the other over. I like doing it at the same time. Now, before a knit stitch, I'm bobbling around here because I got this cord. Before a knit stitch, we want to do a backwards yarn over, which means bringing the yarn to the back and wrapping all the way around. So we're ready to do the knit stitch. And then I'm going to dig in with my left needle under both the yarn over and the purl stitch that's back there and pull them over the knit stitch. With a purl stitch, it needs to be a regular yarn over. So yarn comes to the front, wraps around, and I'm going to purl. And I'm going to pull both the yarn over and the stitch further away on the right needle over that stitch I just made and let it drop off. For a knit stitch coming up next, I'm going to come and do a backwards yarn over. knit, and take both the yarn over and the first stitch on the needle, the one further away from the tip, and pull them over the one I just made. Now here's another way to remember this if like forward yarn over and backward yarn over are confusing. It's a purl stitch next. So I'm going to bring my yarn to the front like I'm going to purl, but then I'm going to wrap around my right needle. That's my yarn over. And I'm going to purl, and then I'm going to pull both the yarn over and the further stitch over the one that's closer to the needle, the one I just made. Now, the knit stitch that's next, set up to knit, but then wrap around your needle. Your right needle, knit, and you might have to dig in there to get under the yarn over. The yarn over and the further stitch get pulled over the closer one. I find that's really helpful to remember is I'm about to purl, so I bring my yarn forward to purl, but then I wrap around my needle. And in none of this am I tugging anything super tight. I purl, I get in for the yarn over and the purl stitch, the knit stitch before it, and I pull it over. My next stitch is a knit stitch, so I'm going to go back to knit, but then wrap around my needle. Then I'm going to get the yarn over. If you can't get them both, you can pull one at a time. I might have to, with that yarn over, pull so I can get this guy over, the yarn over, and then the stitch that's further away over. Both of them have to come over before I continue. A purl stitch is next, so I'll bring it forward to purl, but then I need to wrap around my right needle, and I purl. And if it's hard to get under both of these, try not to obstruct my light here, you can pull the yarn over first and then the stitch. I just like doing them both at once, but if that's hard, you can do them one at a time, but we want to get down to one stitch on the right needle before we continue. Knit stitch is next, so bring the yarn to the back to knit, wrap around. Knit, pull the yarn over and the stitch over. What it does is it makes a stretchy bindoff. I'm going to continue with these. I'll go through the mantra a few more times and I'll show you what this looks like when it's done. Purl stitch means bring my yarn to the front, wrap all the way around my needle, give it a good yarn over, purl, get my needle under the two strands that are further away from the needle tip and pull them over the strand that's closest. Knitting means I bring my yarn to the back, but I wrap all the way around before I knit. And then dig in there to get both the wrap around and the further stitch pulled over the first one. Bring to the front to purl, but wrap around. Purl my stitch. Pull those two over. I'm going to do some without talking so you can just watch. I really find it's helpful to say it's a knit stitch. Move my yarn to the back, wrap around, knit, pull everything over that last knit stitch. yarn to the front for a purl stitch, but wrap around, purl, and pull everything over that last purl stitch. I am right before my last stitch. I've already done my wrap, my last stitch on this side. I've done my wrap. I'm going to do my purl. Because some people say, what do I do when they're divided into two? And I've done my last bind off on this side, but I still have all of these stitches to go. I've got the one stitch over here that I need, but I'm just going to turn. I'm going to pull my needle, my left needle, into the other side of stitches, and look, I'm ready to go. My knit stitch is next, so bring it to the back and wrap it around and just continue binding off. Hi. All right, I'm just at the end here and my cat is just under my left elbow. Just did my last purl stitch, and sometimes to prevent a gap, I will pick up a stitch where I first started and do my last bind off. But I'm gonna be doing a knit stitch, so I'm gonna do my backwards yarn over. And then I'm gonna come in here and pick up a stitch and do this super last bind off right here. And then I will pull this shut. And there still might be a little bit of a hole there that I can sew shut, but it's a little less gappy than it would be if I hadn't. Either way, I can sew this little area shut. But now I'm done with my second sock. Thanks for joining us again today. There's the kitty for Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. I do really like how it gives you something stretchy. It might flare a little, but not as much as some other stretchy bind offs. And I have two different colors because these started in slightly different spots, but I did that just because I wasn't sure how much of this I would have left. I might have enough if I do toes and heels in something else to do maybe a little anklet pair of socks. What's left here? Or I can see if it's enough for Liz to make a Minion Bag of Mystery contribution. That's at the shop where Liz has bags. You can't see what's inside till you buy it. And you get 25 grams of 5 different yarns. So it's 110 and 125 grams all together for 10 bucks. It's kind of fun. You can order those through the mail too. So, yay, I have my socks done. Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. It's a fun one to do. And once you get in the rhythm, it feels pretty good. There's my kitty saying hi. Yes, do you want, oh, here we go. Let me know if you'd like to see a video on something else. If I can, I will add it to my list. Some things, if I'm not as well versed on and don't feel like I can learn to teach, I may not make it to the rotation. But I try to do as many things as I can that people would like. Please consider liking this video at the very least, adding a comment, subscribing. You can become a member here for a monthly fee, or you can support us over at patreon.com/sundragon. There's all kinds of things over there that you can get from Patreon after 3 months that say Sundragon or Vikings on them. Thanks again for watching, and may your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. Bye-bye now. Hi. Yes. I need to finish my video, baby.